Hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Colverson from the University of Florida and the Senior Gender Scientist of the USAID Livestock Systems Innovation Lab. And I'm going to be speaking to you in a very short period of time on a project I've been involved in called Engaging Men in Supporting Maternal and Child Consumption of Milk and Other Animal Source Foods in Rwanda. The project that I've been involved with for the past few years has a very interesting history, but it's based around the fact that when we think about nutrition, particularly around maternal and child nutrition practices, we generally think of these being issues and responsibilities of women in many of the low and middle income countries we work in. However, when we think about the family and the household, we also recognize that men can influence nutrition decisions in their household through either assisting in decision making or making the decisions, controlling the resources, or providing social support to the wives and females in their family. Despite the recognition of these gender roles, most of the nutrition programs that we are aware of target women. And partly this is due to the fact that men are not comfortable in participating, and there's been relatively little evidence on how to actually involve them. So this project was really created to identify some of the strategies that will help to more effectively engage men in household nutrition. Project team members. We had Dr. Emily Uma was our principal investigator from International Livestock Research Institute, Dr. Valerie Flax, a large and very excellent nonprofit organization called Three Stones International with Jesse and Marianne, myself, and Dr. Alessandra Galli, also from ILRI. The background of this project, as I mentioned previously, is basically to look at issues around how do we engage men and boys more actively in household nutrition. So the focus was to develop, implement, and evaluate an intervention to engage men in maternal and child nutrition, especially around milk and animal source food consumption. This is part of a larger project that has been funded through the Livestock Lab called Enhancing Milk Quality and Consumption for Improved Income and Nutrition in Rwanda, and we have a link here that you're welcome to use and take a look at. And this project has been targeting women with young children who have received a cow through the government of Rwanda's One Cow Per Poor Family, the Garinka program. The background of our project, not only, as I mentioned previously, focuses on these families that have been involved with Garinka, it also acknowledges that the nutrition impacts of this particular program have not previously been measured. So we really wanted to look at what are the associated with the Garinka project, and particularly the consumption of household milk. Our program has been delivered through government community health workers and mainly works with pregnant women and women with young children. The problem we have noticed, and obviously this happens because of many different gender constraints, is that men rarely participate in the daytime or evening meetings held by the community health workers to improve nutrition in the family household. Partly because they view the meetings as the domain of women, partly because the venues, such as health centers, are seen as largely female spaces. But we recognize that men can influence nutrition within their household through helping to make decisions with their wives or themselves alone about what crops to plant, livestock to raise, their management and use of money, and whether or not to keep or sell food produced within the household. And this particularly is important when we consider production and consumption of milk products. We also obviously can be concerned about what types of food are bought in the household, and men can influence this as well. The project that I'm talking about that we have been engaged in has a number of different activities that have been ongoing, even with COVID. We have been able to have some formative research around focus group discussions with men and women, key informant interviews, and some participatory workshops, which have been somewhat virtual but also somewhat hybrid. We've been able to assess men's and women's perceptions of their roles in nutrition and the gender dynamics around these roles. We've been able to look at men's ways and interests in engaging them in maternal and child nutrition, and what would they prefer to use as mechanisms. We've also been able to look at women's preferences and how would they like men to be involved in household nutrition. Associated with these different activities, we've been able to develop an intervention package which includes a training of trainers, predominantly associated with men and with other individuals in the communities. This will be able to track the participation among men of those who have attended the training and be able to look at using a mixed methods to evaluate the success of these training programs. We are basically looking at the CAP, the knowledge, attitudes, and practices associated with men's interest and women's interest in nutrition, especially as it relates to milk and animal source food consumption. Some of the results that we've gotten back from the surveys that we have done, both men and women are involved in household food security, and obviously their roles are significantly different. Men generally provide the money to purchase animal source foods. Women prepare these things and are involved in supplementing the diets with a variety of other food sources. The community health workers and government employees are responsible for providing the training to the women generally, and they also provide the livestock associated with the Gorinka project. But the big interest for us was, what do women want men to know about nutrition? If they want them to be engaged, what do the men need to know? Men should be trained, and they should be done by either professional nutritionists or village elders who have responsibility and the ability to influence people about how to prepare balanced meals. They should also be trained on the importance of milk consumption for children instead of selling it, which is the predominant thing that has been happening associated with the Gorinka project. They should also be trained on milk hygiene and safe handling of dairy products, especially the dangers of consuming raw milk due to lack of pasteurization. One of the other things that we looked at was, what are some of the most effective places and methods of sharing nutrition information with men? Media was considered to be one of the highlights, particularly looking at radio messages, posters, and SMS messages for both men and women. Social gatherings, obviously once we can get beyond COVID, looking at churches, market centers, and cooperatives where men and women gather. We also noted that women, particularly wives, are generally better at transmitting information than the community health workers if they are trained well. So this is an important aspect to consider if we really want husbands and men to be involved in household nutrition. And we can really think about ways and mechanisms for training men and women together, including locations, time of training, and providing childcare. We have had a number of different activities that have taken place following the survey results. I mentioned we've done workshops, we've done training, and due to time constraints, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. But something that's important to pick up when we did an assessment of these trainings is that we recognized that the knowledge about nutrition was high among the participants. However, that understanding about milk safety handling practices was low. So this is an area that needs to be emphasized in the future. We also looked at ways to share the key messages, and facilitators who were involved in these trainings received a fairly high overall rating, but they really needed more information about technical information, which we will focus on again in the future. We also were involved in delivering key SMS messages. Some of the challenges that we have faced, along with many other projects these days, are obviously associated with COVID. It's been a challenge to implement our interventions as we had difficulty doing any kind of face-to-face activities. We are still continuing to develop and deliver SMS messages, and we have actually had a project extension until the end of September to accommodate these things. If you have any questions, I would strongly encourage you to take a look at some of these other links we have for the video training of the actual fathers that we worked with, and to take a look at some of the previous work that has taken place in this larger project, Enhancing Milk Quality and Consumption. And if you are interested in some of the additional materials that we have specifically associated with Rwanda, I would ask you to take a look at this following link on the Livestock Lab. Thank you very much, and I hope this project has been of interest, and delighted to have the opportunity to speak. Thank you.